Okay, so, hi. Who else here? Alexander, yeah. Okay, let's offer the mandala and take refuge, then we'll do our rejoicing. So, make the mudra, and Mike, would you lead us in the mandala, please?
Sashi Puki Jukshing Metak Cham Rira Blingshi Ninde Genpadi Sange Shingdu Mikte Wargi Jokun Namdak Chingla Chupar Shok Idam Guru Radna Mandala Kam Niryatayami
Sange Chudang Zoki Choknama Chanchu Bardu Dakni Kyatsuchi Daki Jinso Kipe Sunam Ki Drola Pencher Sange Drupar Sho Sange Chudang Zoki Choknama Chanchu Bardu Dakni Kyatsuchi Daki Jinso Kipe Sunam Ki Drola Pencher Sange Drupar Sho Sange Churang Zoki Chognama Chanchu Bardu Dakni Katsubchi Daki Jinso Kipe Sunam Ki Drola Pencher Sange Drupar Sho. Okay, well, let's get to the screen. I don't like seeing myself. There we go. Okay, so let's do some rejoicing here. I see a few people on the screen. Daria, can you share with us your rejoicing for today?
I tried English.
Oh, thank you.
Good evening. I study. I tried to study how's joy, how's как радоваться.
Yeah, so you can do it in Russian, that's fine.
How the joy, that's all right.
Rejoicing, yes.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I help parents. I help children with special
needs.
Special children's.
Wow, very good.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that. That's an incredible gift to be able to help children with a need. That's very impressive. Okay, let's go to Katerina. What do you have to rejoice about today?
Hello. I rejoice nice weather today. I walk with my daughter after school. I walk. Today is my yoga teacher's birthday, and I make a video from photos for her, like a present.
Very good. Very good. Well, good for you doing yoga. It's something I did for 3 years, 3 months, and 3 days. And I stopped doing it once I got Parkinson's. But good, good. Okay. Mike, besides having your cat appear on screen, what do you have to rejoice about today?
When it happened, I was like, oh, I can't wait to to use this as my rejoicing thing for Monday. So I was driving to a friend's house, and so I live in Baltimore and he lives in Philadelphia. So I was driving up there, and on the way there was a car that was smashed into the guardrail, and the back end of the car was sticking out into the lane of traffic. And I don't I didn't like think about it. I just pulled over, and like as soon as I saw it, I pulled over and I got out, and there was like a girl in the car, and she was like talking on the phone. But I'm like, we got to get you out of this car, because if another car comes and hits it, like she's gonna, spin or whatever. Um, so I got her out of the car, and then we like backed up like away from the car in case anything got hit. And like I called 911, and the ambulance came, and and then I left. But just I was like dedicating that to, anything in the future that that other people would be there for people in need like that.
Very good. Very good. The question I have is, was she still on the phone and that's why she hit the guardrail?
No, so apparently there was people turned around that saw it happen. So they like went down and like turned around and came back. And they said that there was a car that was going like 120 miles an hour, and that it like flew past. And I guess I don't know if it hit her or if it just like scared her and she like lost control. But it was like the people that came back told me that it was some car was acting like crazy.
Wow.
So
Well,
yeah.
very good. Very good. I've got that story I tell about when I first started driving, knowing that if I ever saw someone with a flat tire and problems, I'd stop. And that's how I could expect my sisters and my mom to get help when they needed it. But she stopped right away and helped. There's one thing about an accident I learned from watching a truck roll and seeing my first dead person. I wasn't involved in the accident. I saw it happen. I stopped to help. And in this country anyway, if you stop and help at an accident, you should park on the other side of the vehicle, where you want to travel. So if the car is here and I'm traveling to here, stop on the far side of the vehicle about 100 feet away. Because if you're involved in helping the accident and a helicopter comes, if the blades are moving, you can't move your vehicle until the helicopter leaves or the blades stop turning. So you could be trapped there to help someone for hours, depending on the severity of the accident. But yeah, stopping to help, that's huge. And you probably saved her life by getting her out of the vehicle and away from the vehicle. Very good. Okay, Alexander, what do you have to rejoice about?
I'm rejoicing that today after dinner I played 3 sets of table tennis with one of my sons to make him happy on the one hand, and to help him to become a better table tennis player on the other hand. And I did this with wisdom so that I also see joy and good teachers and teachings in my future life.
Very good. Very good. Table tennis. I haven't played ping pong in years.
Yeah, me too. For 20 years now, I'm starting again.
How did he do? Did he do okay?
Yeah, it's like driving a bicycle. Let's say you do not forget how to play.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Okay, keeping in the family, Cornelia.
Yes. So I rejoice. Maximilian went to childcare today, where I was able to temporarily help the caregiver play with the other children. This way I dedicate more time, fun, and joy for all sentient beings.
Very good. Who's that young lady sitting in your lap?
That's Isabella.
Isabella. Hi, Isabella.
Hello.
I want to thank you both for your good wishes with my test on Friday, which I'll talk about in a minute. Okay, Anastasia.
Да, добрый вечер.
Good evening.
Светлана, будет возможность перевести?
Yes.
Спасибо. Спасибо. Я бы хотела поделиться радостью
А,
на выходных.
Yeah, I would like to share my joy that I could help my sister.
Помогала ей сидеть с ее ребенком, с ее дочкой.
I helped her to be with her daughter. I helped her to do her homework, and then we had a walk, and she was very happy that we could have a walk because she met her friends, and all for 45 minutes, she was running and didn't stop. And I was super happy for her.
Good, good. You brought joy to someone. That's excellent. Good for you. So who's left here? I think I've talked to everybody that's on screen. So what do I have to rejoice in? I did my stress test, which I talked about last week, and it was quite anticlimactic. I was a little anxious because a stress test usually means your heart's really going to be racing and you're going to get anxious. And so I got there, they wired me up, they put me in the machine. They said they were injecting the compound, and I didn't feel anything. They said I was going to feel a warmth throughout the body. The only thing I did feel was my left leg, where I have trouble with swelling from the medication. Felt like it was going to explode, but it didn't hurt. It just felt, well, it just felt like it was going to explode. But I almost said to them, when are you going to start the test? And they immediately were taking me out. The test was over. So in about 3 hours, I'm going to find out what the results were. So the fact they told me when the test was over, they said, if we call you tonight, Friday night, then that means there's a problem. They didn't call. So I think we're in pretty good shape. But the whole time I was doing the test, I was thinking, this is a chance for me to find out more about my health, and I can respond by getting anxious and upset and scared, or I can say, this test is necessary for my health, and it's going to give me a chance to live longer, etc. So I went from being anxious to just joking with them, and I told them my Parkinson's jokes, and they thought they were pretty funny. So it was a good, relaxed atmosphere. They were anxious because they were behind, and they were worried I was going to be upset that I'd waited an hour. My wife is a retired physician assistant, and her family, there were doctors in her family. And I learned a long time ago that when a doctor is late for you, it's because they were giving the care to the patient before you that you're hoping you'll get from them. So I'm never upset when I'm in a professional office like that, because it's my karma for having caused other people to be late. So the best way for me to not have that happen in the future is to not be upset when someone's doing their job. So, okay, did we cover everybody? I think we did. Okay, so today's class. This is going to be a little bit difficult because we're talking about emptiness. And when you first start talking about emptiness, it can get a little confusing. So we're going to go slowly and repeat some stuff. So hang in there. So first of all, in order to understand emptiness, we need to understand what emptiness is empty of. The problem with describing emptiness is the fact that emptiness is a bad translation. It's the best word we have in English, but it's not the best. It's a confusing word to use. So I'm going to use it, but I'm also going to use the word potential. And I'll explain that as we go along. So emptiness is not a thing we can easily describe with words. It's not a positive thing like a car or a plane. It's the absence of something. Emptiness means something is missing. Geshe talks about you're out for dinner, expensive dinner, you reach into your pocket, you pull out your wallet, and your credit cards aren't there. Your credit cards are empty of being in your wallet. What is missing? The term we use for what is missing is called the gakcha, the object to be denied. So, for instance, if my lovely wife asked me to take out the garbage and I go and find that there is no garbage, then the garbage that isn't there is the gotcha. In the context of emptiness, the gotcha means a self-existent thing, a thing which exists by itself, independent, not independence, but independent of other factors. So I'm going to say that again. The gotcha means a self-existent thing, which is a thing which exists by itself, independent, not independence, independent of other factors. So gotcha is what emptiness is empty of. The first step in understanding emptiness is to identify the gotcha. It is what isn't there in emptiness. If we do not know what emptiness is empty of, we cannot study it properly, let alone have the direct perception of emptiness. So, scriptural reference says, if you do not know what a water pitcher is, you cannot prove that there isn't one on the table. If we don't understand what exists, we cannot refute its existence. So therefore, we need to investigate what it means to be self-existent, to be a thing which exists independently out there, all by itself, without depending on another factor. So what would a self-existent thing be like? It's hard to describe because there is no self-existent thing. I jokingly say that the only self-existent thing is how to prepare waffles, pancakes, or French toast to eat. And just to finish the thought, I really like pancakes and French toast and waffles. So if you're going to eat French toast, pancakes, or waffles properly, there's only one way, self-existent way to eat them. You stack 3 of them, you butter them, you stack 3 of them up, you cut them 4 ways this way, you cut them 4 ways this way, and that exposes a vast surface area in the French toast, waffle, or pancake. Then you pour the syrup on, it's absorbed, and you have a nice, every piece of the pancake is now drenched in syrup. So that's the only way to eat pancakes. And because it's the only way, it's a self-existent way, which is silly because not everybody eats pancakes that way. So it's not self-existently the only way. They should eat it that way, but it isn't self-existent. That's a silly example, but it's one close to my heart because I really like pancakes. So what would a self-existent thing be like? It would have to appear exactly the same to any sentient being that perceives it. No factor of their mind would have any effect at all. I was looking earlier at pictures of flowers. Bees see in the ultraviolet spectrum. So if you go to a website and you look up bees in ultraviolet, there are many, many pictures that show what a bee sees compared to what we see in visible light. Now, if flowers were self-existent, we would have to see the flower the exact same way that a bee sees it, but we don't see in the ultraviolet. So we can't see it exactly the same way. So that's one example of how a flower can't be self-existent, because if it was, we would have to see it in only one way. Another way that things would have to be, if they were self-existent, the object would have to function the same way for any being that perceived it. So what's a good example of that? What's a good example of something functioning the same way for every being that perceived it? Okay, we could use the pen example again. I hold up a pen. You see a pen. It functions as a pen for you. You write with it. I hold this up to a dog. Now, I don't know what a dog sees. They see in the visual. I don't know if they see color. They see in the visual spectrum. So are they seeing an object with this has a blue tip and a blue button to push, and it's black? They may not see it. They may see that the same way I do, but the function, they can't use it to write with. So it can't be self-existent, because if it was self-existent, they would have to use it to write with, and they don't. Well, I don't have never had a dog that wrote with a pen. The third factor is it can't change in any way, because if it changes, that means something outside is influencing it in some way. So a self-existent thing can't change. It has to function the same way for everybody who perceives it, and it has to look the same for everybody that perceives it. So what does that mean in everyday life? What it means is, where is what we see coming from, if it's not coming from out there toward us? And I like to think of it this way. Your karma ripens, you project something, and then you see it. Your karma ripens, then you see it. So that means everything in your world is everything in your world, except for pancakes and cutting pancakes. I'm kidding, of course, they're not self-existent. What's the equivalent to pancakes in Russia? Do you have something like pancakes or French toast in Russia? What would that be?
Yeah, it's in Russian it's blini, like a pancake, but it's not pancake.
Do you use syrup and stuff on it? Do you pour
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
How about, I've got a funny story about pancakes. Everybody in Austria and Germany will appreciate this. So I'm 8 years old. We go to, we're on the continent during the school break. We're driving around in a microbus, 5 kids and my 2 parents. And we stop in a small town in Germany. I think it was Germany, maybe it was Austria. And my dad tells us, we're going into a restaurant in the town where pancakes were first served, where the place where pancakes originated. And we got into the restaurant. He made a big deal about that. And he said to the waiter, so we're here to taste pancakes where they originated. And the waiter looked at him and said, I have no idea what you're talking about. So my dad must have read that in the tour guide, and the people in the tour in the town had no idea what he was talking about. I always think about that when I tell my pancake story. But anyway, my dad wasn't wrong like that very often, and he didn't like being wrong, but so be it. So anyway, so it has to appear exactly the same to any sentient being that perceives it. It has to function the same way for any being that perceives it, and it can't change in any way, because if it changes, it means something is influencing it, and if something's influencing it, it can't be self-existent, because a self-existent thing can't change. When we look at anything, including ourselves, our automatic thought is that we are out there independent of me and other factors. So you think about it. This computer monitor I'm looking at seems to be self-existent, but it isn't. It's depending on my karma. But we'll get to that in a minute. When we look at anything, including ourselves, our automatic thought is that we are out there independent of me and other factors. A self-existent thing cannot exist. If it did, it would have to exist in a way opposite to the way things deceptively exist. If it does not exist deceptively, it does not exist at all. There is no such thing. So it is not that it just isn't here. There is no such thing and never has been. But we see everything as if they were self-existent. All our emotions and judgments, positive or negative, are focused on the self-existent thing, thinking it's out there by itself and that I had nothing to do with it. So, for instance, an angry, yelling person that could exist independent of any other factor does not exist. If someone's yelling at me, it's because of my past karma, having yelled at others. It's not that it's just appearing there out of nowhere. But until you start studying emptiness and the concept of emptiness, karma and emptiness, it seems like it's coming at you. All the problems in the world, everything's coming at you. We're not saying things don't exist. It's very important that you understand that. We are not saying things don't exist. This computer monitor in front of me with all of your pictures and your faces on it exists. But it doesn't exist independent of my seeing it, projecting it from my karma ripening. Now, I have the karma to see each of you, have the karma to see me, have the karma to see you. And that's where it gets to me a little bit complicated. So when it gets complicated like that, I stop, I pull back, and I just say to myself, my karma is ripening to see all of you on this screen. You have the karma to see me. I don't influence your karma. I have the karma for you to have karma. But I don't judge. I can't drive the karma you have. I just have the karma to see that you have karma. Because I can't affect your karma. You can't affect my karma. So again, I'm not saying things are not out there. I'm saying they're not out there the way that we think they are. So that's a deceptive reality. The deceptive reality is we think things are out there coming at us. That's deceptive. They're out there. That's not the issue. But they're not out there coming at us. We're projecting them. Our karma is creating them. Things have two forms of existence. Their ultimate existence and their dependent existence, the deceptive existence. So we need to learn how our minds do this so that someday we can catch ourselves at it and then change. Things exist just by appearing to an unimpaired mind. There are two parts that are necessary. A thing must be out there. Flowers have to be out there to appear as flowers, and there must be someone or something perceiving them. Both factors must be present. There are no factors existing out there in some way other than being on their own. If they could, that would be a gotcha. The way things exist conventionally, and it's important, conventionally and deceptively, is that objects appear to us and we perceive them in a way we do, but they do not exist there out on their own, totally independent of other factors. We think they do. So for instance, is there a grocery store at the intersection of 16th Avenue and Ajo Way in Tucson? Yes. But it's not there by itself. It's there because I have the karma to project it being there. Now, are there groceries in that store waiting to be sold? Sure, because I have the karma to see that. Is there someone there right now? This is where it gets a little squirrely. Because I can't see it right now. So when I call the pharmacy to go get some medication. Am I calling that Fry's? At that grocery store? It seems like it. I'm projecting that I am. But do I really know that it's there? That's where I pull back and I say, that's outside the realm of what I'm comfortable thinking about. I have the karma to perceive my world the way I perceive it. It's out there because of my karma. It's not out there coming at me. It's out there by my projecting it. By my karma ripening and projecting that karma. So my mind is projecting it. It's very important to remember we're not saying things don't exist. I can't say that enough. We're not saying things don't exist. We're saying things don't exist in the way we think they do, in the way our culture and tradition makes us think they do. That's what sets us apart from other philosophies or religions. Does it make us better? I don't know. You ask a Catholic, and they probably don't think much of Buddhists. I have a sister-in-law who's Catholic, and she doesn't think much of Buddhists. Which doesn't bother me any because I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. But it doesn't change. How can I put this? It doesn't change how the world works. It changes how we perceive the way the world works. And because, as I use with my case of Parkinson's, because it's my karma ripening to have Parkinson's, it means my karma can ripen for me not to have Parkinson's. If Parkinson's was self-existent, I could do nothing about it. So that's the part I bring to my mind when I'm talking about karma and emptiness, is it's my karma, my fault for everything that's happening in this world. The past things I've done are what created the fires on Maui, the struggle in Yemen and Somalia, the war in Ukraine, all the natural disasters. That's my karma ripening from past misdeeds. Now, the good that's happening in the world, the fact that I have students that are interested in the Dharma is coming from the good that I've done. So just because the bad is due to me, we can't negate the fact that the good is in the world is also good to me. So this is an example in the scriptures to try and explain, give a better example of the concept of emptiness and gotcha. So long ago in India, there were magicians who would gather a crowd and hold a stick in the air. They would cast a spell over the crowd, and suddenly everybody in the crowd would see a horse instead of a stick. So the crowd would gather, they'd throw some magic dust, and then they'd hold up a stick and say, "This stick is a horse." And the people in the crowd would actually see a horse. The magician would see a horse, but know that it was a stick. There has to be a stick in order for the spell to make you see the horse. You have to be there to perceive it. The spell requires a stick and a perceiver, and that is how things appear deceptively. It appears to me, and I see it. Emptiness is the fact that nothing exists in this way. Nothing exists out there on its own. So, back to the magic show. There must be a stick appearing as a horse, and there must be a state of mind perceiving the horse. If there did not have to be a stick there to appear as a horse in order for the crowd to see a horse, the crowd would see a horse everywhere. So it's necessary to have an object that appears to you. Your mind is seeing the stick as a horse because you have the state of mind under the spell to see a horse. If a newcomer, someone that's not under the spell, comes along who didn't get the spell cast on them, they would see a stick and not a horse. So we have three different perceivers of the stick. We have the crowd, which is under the spell. Do they see a horse? Yes. Do they believe there's a horse there? Yes. Is there a horse there? No, there's a stick. The magician, he sees a horse, but he knows it's an illusion because his mind heard the spell too, but he's the one who cast the spell. The latecomer doesn't see the horse and doesn't believe there's a horse. So what does this correspond to in the bigger picture of things? The spectators are like those who have never seen emptiness directly. They see things as self-existent and believe that is the way things really are. So that's us. The magician is like a being up to the last three bodhisattva bhumis. They have seen emptiness directly, but are not in it currently. They still see things as self-existent, but they know it's not true. They know the way things really exist, but they're not able to see things differently. And third, the latecomer. This is like a person in the direct perception of emptiness. They don't see things as self-existent and don't believe things as self-existent. The spell that is cast is like our ignorance, which makes us see things as self-existent. So let's go through that again. The magician casts the spell. The people now see a stick as a horse. The spectators are like those who have never seen emptiness directly. They see things as self-existent and believe that is the way things really are. They see the stick as a horse and believe it's a horse. Yet to the magician, it's a horse, but he knows it's a stick. The magician is like a being up to the last three bodhisattva bhumis. They've seen emptiness directly, but they're not in it currently. They still see things as self-existent, but don't believe it. They know things really exist, but are not yet able to see things differently. They know things exist due to their karma, but they still have this notion that things are self-existent. The latecomer is like a person in direct perception of emptiness. They don't see things as self-existent and don't believe things are self-existent. The spell is like our ignorance, which makes us think things are self-existent. So how do we apply this to life? We get upset at the gotcha at something that doesn't even exist. Does the boss exist when I got fired? Yes. Was she yelling at me, mad at me? Yes. Does there have to be a person yelling at me for my mind to see a yelling boss? Yes. Does your mind see a yelling boss without having brought something to the party? No. What does that mean? Does the boss exist? Yes. My karma ripening. Was she yelling at me? Yes. My karma ripening to have a boss yelling at me. Does there have to be a person yelling at me for my mind to see a yelling boss? Yes. Does your mind see yelling boss without having brought something to the party? No. The yelling boss is from my karma. She's not self-existent. Now, another way of approaching this is there was somebody else in the room when I got fired, the business manager. How did he see it? Maybe he didn't like me and he was happy to see me being fired. Well, I wasn't happy being fired, so we're seeing it differently. But we couldn't if it was self-existent. We'd have to see it the same. So maybe he saw the boss yelling at me and thinking, David's finally getting what he deserves. I, on the other hand, didn't think that. I thought she was making a big mistake, but she didn't give me a chance to explain. So that was my karma. And I went into this, when I got fired in the morning, I realized this was probably going to happen because I got a message to see her and a business manager at the same time in the afternoon. And in my experience with Dr. Timmerman, that meant I was getting fired or asked to resign. So for the next 8 hours, I went about my job properly. I didn't pack up my office. I went about my job properly. And I realized that my response to getting fired had to be perfect, had to be with wisdom. So when I went into the room and she started listing all the things I'd done wrong, I just looked at her and I said, yes, that did happen. Yes, that did happen, waiting to be given a chance to explain. And when she said, okay, now explain why all this happened, I said, instead of blaming others for it, that someone hid a sample, and the reason I couldn't find it is because they removed it from the locker it was supposed to be in, which no one was supposed to do. And I didn't think anybody would do because they weren't supposed to. I just simply said, Dr. Timmerman, that was my fault. I should have been aware that it was not there and I should have found it. So it's my fault. Knowing that it was my fault because of my karma ripening, and because it was my fault, I shouldn't blame somebody else. There's a piece of equipment that was stolen from our lab. As the lab manager, I should have known that. I didn't. So instead of blaming other people, the person who stole it, I said, yep, you're right. The refractometer is no longer here. I've looked for it. I can't find it. I should have known it was missing. It's my fault. It was easy to do because I knew where each of these instances was coming from, my past actions. So if I didn't want those past actions to come to ripen again, in another example, I didn't want to plant the seed for this to happen again. So I didn't say to her, well, it's my karma ripening, so I accept it. That would have been a stupid thing to do because she wouldn't have known it and had any idea what I was talking about. So it doesn't mean, well, it doesn't mean you have to be ignorant about this thing. Someone could see that and could hear what I'm talking about saying, what a loser, he didn't stand up for himself. Well, that's one way to look at it. I look at it as the way I set into motion the seeds not to have that happen again. I ripen the seeds for mistreating someone by firing them for things that weren't really their fault. They were my fault in that I was the manager, but they weren't my fault in that I stole the equipment or mishandled the samples. So the yelling boss is real. It's my projection from past karmic deeds. My getting fired is real due to my past deeds. But if I don't want that to happen in the future, I need to respond with wisdom. So the point here is things exist out there, but they exist out there because of our karma putting them there, not because they're there self-existently. So because of that, we can change our world. Because of that, we can become enlightened beings and help all sentient beings reach their enlightenment. Because things are not self-existent. So I mentioned potential earlier. So for me, the world, I see the world, well, how can I put this? Yeshe Michael talks about a screen that we project, like a video, we project onto the screen, and that's our world. So I just change that to be the potential. I see everything outside of me there's a potential for anything to happen. And that potential for anything to happen comes from my karma. So could my Parkinson's go away tomorrow morning? Absolutely. There's the potential for that because my karmic seed could ripen that I don't have Parkinson's. There is the potential, the possibility of that happening. The possibility is not knowing what karma is going to ripen next. So there's a potential for any karma to ripen next. Now, by rejoicing, I believe I can influence the karma that's going to ripen. But I don't know which one's going to ripen. So what else did I want to say? So if you want to get angry in a situation, get angry at your own mind and what is created as karma. Once we break the spell of ignorance, even if we have not had the direct perception of emptiness, we will stop blaming our circumstances on self-existent things and take responsibility for our own past and the future it portends. I'm going to have to just take a break for a minute. Sorry about that. When you've had prostate cancer, when you have to go to the bathroom, you have to go to the bathroom. So now you know. Okay. So the poison of ignorance is seeing things as self-existent, independent of my own actions. We're talking about learning how to make a world where no one yells at you, learning the behaviors necessary to stop creating the karma we don't want to have ripen in the present or in the future. So, because things are not self-existent, my world can change from having a world where there's such terrible disasters as the fires on Maui, the hurricanes, the war in Ukraine, the climate change. If those were self-existent, first of all, there wouldn't be any climate change because climate change, by its very definition, is changing. So it can't be self-existent. That's the beauty, as confusing as it may seem, as unrealistic as it may seem, because things are self-existent, my world can change to be a beautiful, wonderful environment, to be a paradise. But it's not going to happen by itself. It's going to take me gaining the wisdom necessary to have the karma ripen to project that kind of a world. And how do I do that? The very basis for getting the world you want is service to others, helping others in any way you can. Teaching learning impaired children, taking friends for a walk, playing with your children, all of that, done with wisdom, done knowing you're setting the seeds for your future. That's what this is all about. All the definitions, all of that is wonderful and meaningful. But if you don't start going about your daily life and putting into practice the idea that things are not self-existent, they're your karma ripening, then it's all for naught. It's all studying. You're saying, well, it's my karma, but it's your karma, so. Your karma, so. Period. End of discussion. No debate. But think of catching yourself. Catch yourself through the day, and I bet you subtly think, it's my karma, but more often than you're willing to admit. So that's okay. It's a learning process. We've learned something new. We're in the process of integrating it into our life. And that's a slow but steady progress. Remembering the past is the present is the future. That's it in a nutshell. If you can keep that in mind as you do things throughout the day, I think you'll find your days become much more pleasant. It won't happen immediately, but it will happen. It has to happen because you're setting the seeds for that karma to ripen. So that's the first introduction to emptiness and gotcha, the self-existent thing. It's hard to describe a self-existent thing because there are none out there. Well, except for pancakes. But it's hard to describe something that doesn't exist. So, we don't have any questions. Let's dedicate. Well, let's just think, what's a good homework I could give you guys to do? Well, I can't ask you to describe a self-existent thing because such a thing doesn't exist. Okay, I think I have a self-existent thing for cutting pancakes and eating pancakes. I challenge you guys to come up with something that could be equally something you do that you feel is the only way to do it. Because I bet you all have something you think you do that's the best way of doing something. Now, there is a person in my life that is actually like that and is perfect in all ways, and that's my lovely wife. Her way of doing things is the right way of doing things. And that's the secret to 46 years of marriage. I'm joking, but not very much. She's right probably 99% of the time. Then when I'm right once, she looks at me and just smiles and goes, don't get too excited. You're right once out of 100. So it's all good. Okay, now let's see. I think Friday we have class. And then next Monday, I have a doctor's appointment, so we won't have class on Monday. Is that right? Yeah, that's Dr. Bradley. Okay, let's dedicate today's class. By the goodness of what we've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. Mike, I have something to say to you. I've started my Tibetan book of lists using Excel. So I think I think Excel could be used by just about anybody importing the spreadsheet. So I think that's the universal source. And so I've started the list. So you guys, if all else fails in our lives, this group will be the people that got me started on a project I've wanted to do for 20 years. So thank you for providing the impetus for me to get started on. It's going to be a tool for helping people with the ACI courses, study the material, find the material within the ACI courses. So I hope somebody will use it other than me. I'm going to read all 3,500 pages of the ACI readings now, so I can harvest the lists from it. So that's a good thing, I think. Let's see, at 10 pages a day, that's 350, that's a year. Well, I can do that. Yes, Mike?
You got my email about the CSV?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right, good.
Because I think I can take the, well, what I need to do is try taking the database and make it into a CSV file. So I suppose I should, how would I do that?
You would just export as CSV. Like you would go to file and then export as CSV.
Okay, I think I'll try that. I have about 10 entries. I should try that now before I get too carried away. Okay, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday. By then I'll have the results of the test and we'll know if my heart's causing me problems or something else is. Okay, goodbye. Thank you, Gina, for recording.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure, and thank you, Svetlana, for translating. Yes, go ahead.
So is emptiness itself self-existent?
No,
And is like gravity self-existent? Because like gravity acts on everything like the same way. Like if you're being affected by gravity.
you're breaking up, Mike. I can't.
Oh.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I didn't quite get the question. No, I'm kidding. Is gravity self-existent? That's a good, I've had that question before, and I guess you, Michael, had that question. Is gravity self-existent? Well, if it was self-existent, everybody would. This is maybe a flippant answer, but if gravity was self-existent, wouldn't could we have weightlessness in space flight? I don't know. I will look into that and get you. It can't be self-existent. I'm not going to stick my neck out. I'm going to research that. I'll ask the Oracle and I'll have an answer for you on Thursday. I'm embarrassed I don't have an answer for you now. First, it'd be like space. Space exists. That's a good, I hate it when my students ask me questions I can't answer. I'm kidding. I don't hate it. I encourage everybody to ask me questions I can't answer. But I will definitely have an answer for you. I'll either I'll send the answer to Svetlana so you don't have to wait for 4 days to get an answer. And she'll forward it to everybody. Who's the young man in the picture now with Cornelius? Cornelius.
This is Sebastian. Thanks so much.
Hi, Sebastian. How old are you?
6 to 5 years. Tag 5.
5 years. Wow.
5 years.
Wow. Good for you. Were you playing ping pong with your table tennis with your dad?
Spielst du Ping-Pong mit dem Papa? Ich muss sagen, nein. No. Sag no.
No.
Ja.
Okay. Well, it's good to see smiling children. Okay, everybody.
Ich bin auch eine Kopfhörer.
Bye-bye. Love you all. Bye-bye.